In today's show, Anfernee Simons looks like a star against the Timberwolves, and why Blazers fans were cheering for Nikola Jokic on Sunday night. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Blazers your first listen every single day. It's free on all platforms, 5 days a week, coming at you every single weekday. So make it part of your daily routine and make it your first listen every single day. In today's show, we're going to talk about the Blazers' loss on Saturday night to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Anfernee Simons looks like a star, and the Blazers still lost their fourth consecutive game. Then we're going to look at the New Orleans Pelicans. All of a sudden, Blazer fans need to be invested in the success of that team down in the Big Easy, who's looking pretty good post All-Star break. We'll talk about why Blazer fans need to worry about the Pelicans and what they've been doing. We'll check in with New Orleans after the All-Star break. And then finally, let's close the show talking about lottery odds. The Blazers are not winning games. They are playing for draft picks. Let's talk about exactly what those draft picks look like. But first, let's do what we do. The fastest recap of the West, 135-121. The Blazers lose in Minneapolis, the first of two games against the Minnesota Timberwolves. They play Saturday and Monday. So this is Monday's show, March 7th. The Blazers will face the Wolves again, but in Saturday's game, the Blazers had just 8 available players. Anfernee Simons got the start alongside Keon Johnson, CJ Elleby, Keljin Blevins making his first career start, and Drew Eubanks. Shout out to Troutdale. And despite having 8 players, no Justice Winslow, Josh Hart sat out this game due to rest. Greg Brown III was dealing with a non-COVID illness that seems to be sweeping through the team. Him and Elijah Hughes both missed this game. So the Blazers were very shorthanded, and yet till about the 4-minute mark of the third quarter and even the 7-minute mark of the game, the Blazers were in this until crunch time, absolutely in it. Led after the first quarter where Keon Johnson had 11 points and hit 3 threes, and then finished the quarter with a buzzer beater. Like that was the best 12 minutes we've ever seen Keon play in a Blazers uniform. He helped them hang around. They were down, they were up 1 at halftime. Anfernee Simons had 17 in the first half, but Karl-Anthony Towns had 18, including a buzzer-beating floater at the end of the second quarter. A lot of buzzer beaters in this one, and this one was close. And the Blazers were right there, but they had a really bad close to the third quarter. It was basically tied, and then in the final 2 minutes, the Wolves ripped off. They hit a 3-pointer, and then they got the late and one, hit a 3-pointer then at the buzzer. It was going to be a tie game, 2-point game. The Blazers found themselves down 8 heading into the fourth quarter, and still it didn't matter. Like, they were right in it. Anfernee Simons started the fourth quarter, basically played the entire time, or was going to play the entire time, and he hit a 3 with 7 minutes and 23 seconds left. Cuts the lead to 2. They're down 116-114. High scoring affair. Ants balling, like superstar type stuff, balling. But then in the final 7 minutes, the Blazers got outscored 19-7. Ant missed his final 2 shots in that game, both clean looks at threes. He did not make a field goal in the final 7 minutes and 23 seconds. The Blazers finished 2 of 10 from the floor. The Wolves make 6 of their final 9 shots. And that's your ball game. Blazers lose 135-121. Anfernee Simons led all scorers, 38 points on 11 of 25 shooting, hit 9 threes in all 7 of his free throw attempts. He was just great. He was just straight up great. At the end of the game, what the Wolves did was they decided it wasn't going to be Simons. Like, it just was not going to be. They started sending, they were doing a little bit, but they just committed to it. If they were going to run a ball screen for him, and the Blazers did, they went to, hey, let's run high pick and roll with Ant. That's what he wants to do. Spread the floor, run pick and roll. And the team was just sent bodies at him. They sent 2 players at him, and Ant made the right play. He made the right play. He continuously passed the ball to Drew Eubanks. The problem is he's passing the ball to Drew Eubanks. And with all due respect, like, that's not this fearsome decision maker. Drew Eubanks, a rugged dude, got into it with Malik Beasley, and Malik Beasley headbutted him and got kicked out, got tied up with Naz Reid late in this game, was physical with Karl-Anthony Towns, but he's not this, he's like a rugged backup center. He's not this elite playmaking 4-on-3 release valve in the pick and roll. And the Wolves just said anybody but, final 7 minutes, anybody but Simons, and the Blazers just missed some makeable shots. Ant also twice when the ball would rotate back to him those final 7 minutes, he missed two really good looks at it. Like he missed really two really good looks at it. Dude shot 9 of 17 from three though. Like he did superstar stuff. They treated him like a superstar. And then in the final 7 minutes, the Blazers just didn't have enough offense elsewhere. And Karl-Anthony Towns went nuts. Towns finished with 36 points, 15 boards, 5 assists. Blazers just didn't have anyone to guard him. Blazers got a huge night from Brandon Williams, who I thought was really, really good in this game. The two-way guard. He's a 21-year-old point guard out of Arizona on a two-way contract. Had 21 points in this game, 9 of 14, hit 2 of 5 threes. He reminds me of Cameron Payne a little bit. Like he's not a great table setter with his passing, but he uses his ability to get past people. People can't stay in front of him. He's got real quicks, and he's at least confident enough to take pull-ups and got a lot of little floaters and moves to get himself free around the rim. Like Brandon Williams can play. Brandon Williams, I think he has a path to being a long-term backup point guard in the league. I don't know if he can do anything else, but he can already score in the NBA. And if you can already score, you're in a really good spot. Trent Watford, 12 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists off the bench. Ben McLemore had 13. Keon Johnson, after that super hot first quarter in which he scored 11 and hit 3 3-pointers, finished with 15 points and 5 assists. I thought Keon, more than the assists, just made the right play. A couple times the ball just came to him and he made the right play. Something that just looks more comfortable. Even if it wasn't an assist, it was just moving the ball. Like, hey, I know we're supposed to swing it here. And that type of stuff. I thought this was easily the best Keon has looked in a Blazers uniform. As I mentioned, Drew Eubanks got after it, mixed it up, was fouled out in 28 minutes, played his butt off. Like Drew Eubanks plays hard as hell. He's not going to get cheated in Drew Eubanks minutes. He's got some limitations skill wise, but he is going to give it all he has. He finished with 13 points, 8 boards, 2 assists, and a steal in those 28 minutes. This was after the Blazers had lost 4 games by 30 plus points, or 3 games by 30 plus points. They lost by 37, 32, and 30 in 3 games out of the All-Star break. It was nice to see them in a game. If you're rooting for losses, which I think is the right thing to do, probably this is a better version of one of those losses. They're right in it. They get to crunch time. They don't get it done. Anfernee Simons looks like a star. He had a couple down games in a row, and this is him just 38 on and hitting 9 threes. Like, the dude's just got a quick release. He can shoot off the dribble. He can shoot, catch and shoot. Like, you needed to see Ant with a diminished roster go get a team, just give them problems. And the Wolves tried Jared Vanderbilt on Ant, who really locked up Ant in the last meeting between these two teams. They tried Jaden McDaniels on him, and it didn't matter. They gave him a little Jalen Noel. Ant gave whoever it was problems until the Wolves committed to double teaming him every time down the floor. And commanding a double team is stuff that superstars do. This was a big and important game for Ant. I am, the 38 points is what you see, and 38 points is why we're celebrating him here. But it's that willingness to go get the defenders, make the right play. And if you make the right, so why is talk about good habits? That's a good habit. The double team's coming, you run the pick and roll, you accept the double team 30 feet from the rim, you create that advantage for your team. It's just when it's the back end is, Drew Eubanks and CJ Ellaby and Ben McLemore and Brandon Williams, or Eubanks and Trent Watford, like it was for a lot of this game. It's you don't have enough shooting and you don't have enough playmaking downhill juice to kind of punish teams when they double Ant. He's going to see it a lot, but Simons was fantastic in this game. Superstar stuff. The MIP campaign back on, he looked like a guy who's taken a leap and is scary for teams. You got to be game plan specific against Ant. You cannot run your base stuff because he's good enough to blow it up. He's a big deal. His offensive ability scares teams. And I think it was really good to see him get back into that scary mode, because he can be a number 1. You're not going to be, you want him to be, he can be elite number 2, right? I think as your second best player and a really good offensive player, Anfernee Simons is terrifying. He has the ability though, and I think he showed it in this game, with the right parts around him, he is good enough offensively to be the engine of an offense. And I wasn't really, not that I thought that before about Simons this year, but he was having, with this diminished roster, he was struggling a little bit. So it was nice to see him come back and say, diminish this and just be fantastic. And really, really was good. But like I mentioned, the Blazers they're losing, and it's frankly good for the franchise for them to lose. But there's another team out there that needs to lose. And on Sunday night, New Orleans Pelicans lost in overtime. It was a good thing that the Denver Nuggets won in Denver. Let's check in on what's happening with the Pelicans and the implications that means for your Portland Trailblazers. First, let me tell you about Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar that there is, and the best tasting protein bar on the market. You're not going to find a better one. Don't go search for it. Just check out the macros: 17 grams of protein, 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and just 4 net carbs. That's your typical Built Bar. They're packing a lot of punch, and they taste great too. My personal favorites: peanut butter brownie and cookies and cream, but they also got fruity flavors. They got salted caramel, double chocolate, coconut almond. You're going to find something you like at built.com. And while you're there, you can use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your next order. That's LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. All right. So we talked about the Blazers loss to the T-Wolves. Let's talk about sort of bigger picture stuff to close the show. Portland's playing for draft picks. They're playing young guys. They are playing guys who are not going to be part of the plan next year, like two-way player Keldon Blevins, 10-day on a second 10-day contract, Drew Eubanks, CJ Ellaby, who is a free agent this summer, Keon Johnson, who is a 19-year-old who is a developmental project. They are playing for the future, and the future means draft picks. It is important for the Blazers themselves to lose because they have a lottery protected pick owed to the Chicago Bulls. If they miss the playoffs, they get to keep their pick. The more losses they have, the better the odds get. We'll talk about that to close the show. But there's another team out there in the West, the New Orleans Pelicans, that the Blazers, and quite frankly, you, dear Blazer fan, have to be invested in the New Orleans Pelicans losing. It is important for the health of the Portland Trail Blazers that the Pelicans lose. Here's why, in case you don't know. The Blazers, in the trade for CJ McCollum, they've received a lottery protected pick for this year from the Pelicans that will go to the Blazers if it falls between 5 and 14 rather. So if it's in the top 4, the Pelicans keep it, but 5 and 14 is the Blazers. But they need the Pelicans to miss the playoffs in order to get it. If the Pelicans do indeed make the playoffs, that pick it goes somewhere else, and the Blazers will get a 2025 first rounder from the Bucks. That's not only further down the line and not a pick or something you can use right away this summer, but it's also just a way better team. Like, the Bucks are going to be really good in 2025. It's going to be a worse pick. It's going to be something like the 12th pick in the NBA draft this summer of 2022, or the 27th pick in 2025. Like, it's a big, to me, this is incredibly important. So I've got both eyeballs watching Pelicans games, because what happens with that pick, not only will the Blazers, it's important because the Blazers could use that pick to draft a good player, but it's also ammo to trade. It's another draft pick. If the Blazers have 2 lottery picks, they're much more able to wheel and deal this summer. Like, it just puts them in such a better spot. And heading into the All-Star break, the Pelicans were kind of scuffling. CJ McCollum had been really good, but Brandon Ingram hadn't figured out how him and CJ were gonna exactly operate together. He had a couple of just bad shooting nights where he just missed some shots. It happens. It's basketball, particularly when you haven't had a long rest and need the All-Star break. But out of the All-Star break, the Pels have been awesome. They were 4-0 heading into Sunday night's game against the Denver Nuggets in Denver. The Pelicans had 4 wins. They're 4-0. Average margin of victory over 26. They sported the number 2 offense in the league after the All-Star break and the number 1 defense in the league by a mile. It's 4 games, but it's 4 blowout wins by the Pels. They looked great. CJ McCollum's been great. Brandon Ingram has figured it out. And the sort of deep investment in the Pelicans struggling wasn't coming to fruition because they just look really good. They go into Denver tonight. They miss a couple free throws in the final 35 seconds of regulation, and Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets pull out a crucially important win for your fighting pinwheels. Nikola Jokic probably had a Blazers jersey on under his Nuggets duds there in Denver. That was going to be a really impressive win for New Orleans. 5-0 out of the break, win in Denver, a tough place to win against the reigning MVP. Jokic was nuts. He had 30 in the fourth quarter in overtime, like nuts. That's 30 points in the final 17 minutes of the game. It's like, at worst, the 3rd best player in the world. He's really good, and he saved the Blazers bacon in this one. Incredibly important win because the teams around the Pelicans are just not that good, and they have a real chance to make the playoffs. Let's just sort of break down what that real chance looks like. The Pelicans, with this loss, are now a game and a half back of the Los Angeles Lakers, but the Los Angeles Lakers are bad. I don't think you need to sugarcoat it too much. They had been scuffling, and then they win against Golden State on Saturday because LeBron James at age 37 has 56. I don't think LeBron's going to score 55 plus. He's the best basketball player I've ever seen play. Much like Jokic, like LeBron is something like at worst the second best player of all time, but like he's this 19th season. He's not going to score 50 a night for the final 15 games to bail the Lakers out. Like they stink. They are not good. And they stink the way like a team with multiple Hall of Famers stinks. Like they're good enough to win games, but they just are. The defense is horrific sometimes, and the offense is basically never good unless LeBron goes hero mode. And you can count on that a little bit, but the Pelicans look competent enough that was getting scary. And why that matters is because the way the play-in works is that 9 and 10 play each other and the 9th seed hosts. And then 7 and 8 play each other. And whoever wins the 9-10 game plays the loser of the 7-8 game. And that game would determine who gets the 8th and final playoff spot. That final playoff spot, when the bracket is set, will determine the playoff odds. So the Pelicans, as they currently stand, are very, very likely to have to win 2 single elimination games to make the playoffs. 2 is incredibly important. And I don't think, quite frankly, that the Pelicans have a particularly good chance of avoiding the 9-10 game. Like they're not going to catch Minnesota. They're not going to catch the Clippers. Both of those teams are too competent and too just sort of like decent that they're gonna get there. It is what it is. Like those 2 teams are going to hold off the Pels. It's, they're not going to make up 4 games in the final 15 unless something wild happens. Pelicans have been really good, but it's just not going to happen. It would take an incredible choke job. So what if you are rooting at home? The sort of hater's guide is the Pels got to lose every night. That's simple. But you need the Lakers to keep winning. Like you got it. There was a certain point when we were doing this and I was doing the hater's guide to tanking. It was like, Blazers fans, you got to root for the San Antonio Spurs and the Kings. The Kings stink. They're not going anywhere. The Spurs have no interest in, they trade away some veterans. They trade away Derek White. Like they're headed for the lottery too, and they want to get there. There's no real reason for them to make the play-in. And they're, further back in the standings regardless behind the Blazers right now. So the Blazers lose their 4 in a row and like have not been within single digits of a team yet after the All-Star break. That's where they're headed. So like, you got to root for the Lakers. I don't know how to tell you this. You got to root for the Lakers. The Pelicans need to lose every one of their games if that's possible. Like you just need them to keep on losing, but you need the Lakers to stay in 9th. You need the Lakers to have a home game in that first of the play-in tournament. Like if the Pelicans host the sad sack Lakers in New Orleans, there's a chance the Lakers show up for like 7 minutes of that game and pack it in and go home sad. Like they're just a team full of quitters. You do not want to risk them straight up quitting on the Blazers lottery hopes. You need the Pelicans to win, and some of y'all have a Lakers jersey in your closet because that's how it works. Bust that bad boy out. You gotta root for LeBron and the Lakers down the stretch, as gross as it might feel to you, because it's incredibly important that the Pelicans miss the playoffs. And they look like a good enough team that could, if they hadn't dug such a big hole to begin with, like you could argue they're the best of the 4 teams that are going to be in the play-in. And if you get into a single elimination tournament and you have shot makers like Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum, that is scary. Those are single elimination type dudes. You want them to play 2. You want them to have to win 2 road games to get in. You want them to have to go to crypto.com. I was about to call it Staples. Sorry to my corporate overlords. You need them to have to go to the crypt and beat the Lakers there. You just need it to happen. So get out your palms, get out your Forum blue and gold t-shirts and start rooting for the team you probably hate the most in the league. Go Lakers, go. They got it. The Blazers just need them to do it. The Blazers are going to lose in a bunch of games though. We've laid out kind of who who we need to lose, who they need to lose around them. Let's talk specifically about Blazers odds. Let's look at the tank and what losing means and what's at stake for the Blazers as we move forward. Before we do that, close out the show. Let's talk about betonline.net, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Do you want to bet on the Lakers to win a bunch of games because now you're suddenly a huge Laker fan and a big believer? You can do that on betonline.net. They got live odds. They got everything you need pregame. You can bet during the game. You can get props and everything you could ever want on NBA basketball. But it's not just the NBA. They got scores and live props and odds on everything like the NHL, like soccer all over the globe, tennis tournaments. They got combat sports like boxing and MMA. Whatever it is, you're going to find it at betonline.net. So don't wait. Go take advantage of it today. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked on Blazers. We talked about the Blazers lost to the T-Wolves. Anfernee Simons looks like a star, like the engine of a very good offensive team. Admittedly, the Wolves have taken a pretty big step back on defense after looking really good early in the year, but man, was it good. We talked about the need for the Lakers to win and the Pelicans to lose. It's never been more important to cheer for the Lakers in Blazerland, and that is bizarre, but it's the place they are. Let's talk about those odds, though, because this matters. It matters now for the Blazers. Like, they're in a position where you need to look at the teams below them in the standings and say, all right, the Magic need to win. The Rockets need to win. I think really the teams you want to win, like if you're this hater's guide to tanking, is Sacramento, San Antonio, and the New York Knicks. Those are the teams that are closest to the Blazers right now. As we stand here today, the Blazers are tied with the New York Knicks for the 8th worst record in the league. They are a game and a half ahead of the San Antonio Spurs, and they are 2.5 games ahead of the Kings. The Blazers just need those teams to lose. It is what it is. There's no other way they need those teams to win and they need to lose. Like, it is what it is. Like, you just have to, you got to root for the Lakers to win. You got to root for the Kings to, you got to root for the Kings to win. You've got to like jump on the bandwagon of some maybe rivals of your childhood and say, get them out of here, because it really matters. As the Blazers currently stand here with the 8th worst record in the league, they have a 23.1% chance of getting a top 4 pick. The lottery odds are only for the top 4 picks, and then everything else kind of falls in order behind that. It's not all 14 picks in the lottery. It's the top 4, and then from there it moves to in order of record, but things get bumped down depending on who moves up in the lottery, et cetera, et cetera. So as the Blazers stand right now, they have a 23.4% chance of getting a top pick and a 5.2% chance of getting the number 1 overall pick. If they can lose more than the Knicks down the stretch, it increases incrementally to increase to 5.3. But if they can catch the Spurs for the 7th worst record in the league, if they can truly get there, the odds for a top 4 pick jump up to 31.9%. That's almost a 10% increase. It's a 9% increase in likelihood of a top 4%. If they can catch the Kings, who have the 6th worst record in the league, like if the Blazers can lose enough to catch the Kings, it jumps from 23% like it is now to a 37.2% chance of getting a top 4 pick. Basically, more than a third, like more than a third of the time, the Blazers sort of just odds-wise would get there. And the chance of getting a number 1 increase from 5.2% as the Blazers currently stand today with the way that I'm looking at tankathon.com, an extremely valuable resource. The Blazers, the way the tiebreaker works, they're doing it. They're calling the Blazers having the 9th worst record in the league. But if the Knicks are going to lose, so the Blazers are going to end up with the 9th worst record. So let's just call it like it is. The Blazers are currently 8th. They would jump from that like 5% chance number 1 overall if they could catch the Kings. If the Blazers could lose and catch the Kings who win some games, it jumps from 5.2% to 9%. Like, it doubles your chances of getting the number 1 overall pick. It's incredibly important for them to lose. Tanking sucks. Like, it sucks. Rooting for your team to lose stinks. It's not like there's nothing positive about it. There's no good way to root for it. You know, you watch particularly the games where Blazers losing by 30. It's like, oh, don't worry, that I'll get hope of a draft pick down the line. But for where the Blazers are. And they're straight up doing a like Sam Hinkie level, rotating guys who are not part of the plan through because they have their eyes on the prize in the future. And these guys are just, Drew Eubanks is a path to get to the future. Like I said, it's kind of a bummer. Like the vibes are a little bad around it, but like they need to lose, and they need those other teams to win games. They need the Kings to win games. They need the Spurs to win games. The Blazers play the Spurs 3 times down the stretch here. Portland's got to lose all of them. They got to lose all of them. It's incredibly important. It's like I said, I think that it's weird. Like it's weird to watch this team lose and say, okay, this is good, but they put themselves in this position. I don't think there's like a sort of like a moral high ground now to be like, I want the Blazers to win. You don't. The health of the franchise is better if they lose. Like it just is. I think night to night, I can see in minute to minute, particularly, they're basically like down 2 with 7 minutes left to the Wolves. Root for them to win, right? But like, you need them to lose. It's just, like I've said a couple times, it is what it is. And that's the situation they're in, is that you need them to keep losing. And for their sake, they have put themselves in this position to keep on losing. They play the T-Wolves on Monday night again. Anfernee Simons is not going to play in that game. He has a quad contusion. Josh Hart, who was sat out for rest and load management on Saturday night while the Blazers were playing 3 games in 6 days, one of their lightest stretches of the season, they gave Josh Hart a rest day. Josh Hart will be back. He's going to play on Monday, but Anfernee Simons is out. Anfernee Simons is out with a quad contusion. Do I think Anfernee Simons has a quad contusion? Yes, I do. Do I think he got beat up a little bit going hard and taking all those shots, 25 shots plus free throw attempts, 32 shooting possessions against the Wolves with all those ball handling duties? Hell yes, I do. Yes. Do I think Ant could play in another circumstance with a quad contusion he has? Yeah, I bet he could. Like, they're just going to be conservative with this stuff. I don't want to like question guys' health. Like I feel bad about saying, yes, he probably could, because I don't know. But the way that they've treated injuries with the Josh Hart rest night, and then you bring him back and you hold out Ant, like it's impossible to give the team the benefit of the doubt. I just can't do it. I want to, because I want to respect these guys as competitors, but I can't. I know what the Blazers are doing. They're trying to make sure that they have limited opportunities to win games, and they're doing a darn good job, because it's incredibly important for them to jump a couple spots and finish with the 6th worst record in the league as opposed to the 9th worst record in the league. It's important for them. It would increase the likelihood of improving the franchise a great deal. It would be a great deal. If you look at the Pels pick that the Blazers are owed, like they would have, if things stand the way it is, they'd have a 14% chance of getting a top 4 pick with just the New Orleans pick alone, and a 3% chance of getting the number 1 overall pick. You have that just random ping pong ball in there with New Orleans, plus you increase your odds of getting a higher draft pick by, juicing your own ping pong balls with losses down the stretch. You're just in a better position to either draft stars or trade high draft picks. Like you're in a better spot. And so I can't give them the benefit of the doubt on any of that. Like I know what they're trying to do, and I think it's the right thing. But I'm just going to be skeptical of the injury reports straight up. Like I don't know any other way to say it. I'm just going to be skeptical of the injury reports. That's how this is going to work. It does sound like Greg Brown will be available on Monday's game against the T-Wolves. So you get to see Bouncing Brown back in. He's fun, excited to see him, and he's not good enough that he's going to spoil the Blazers' chances of winning. They're going to be okay. Or they're going to keep on losing probably. And if they don't lose, wins are still fun, even if now losses are incredibly important. That is your show about tanking. This is your tank show. We'll check in on the odds. We'll check in on the Blazers, odds for a top pick. We'll be watching the teams, Lakers and Pelicans and the teams ahead, behind the Blazers in the standings with the Spurs and the Kings. Like this is something we're going to do down the last 15 games. We're going to start getting a better sense of where the Blazers might be picking. We'll look ahead to the draft. Like the future we got to start looking to the future, because the present, the Blazers are just doing a thing where they're admitting to you just bold-faced that these games do not matter. So games might not matter, but Lockdown Blazers is still rolling along. We're going to have 5 shows this week. This is Monday Monday, March 7th show. We'll have a bunch more shows this week. We'll have some guests on this week. We're going to do a mailbag. We're going to have a whole bunch of fun. So come back and join us. Tell your friends to do the same. Make it your first listen every day. It's free on all platforms, 5 days a week, every single weekday. Congratulations to Mike Krzyzewski on a wonderful coaching career. I'm glad the Tar Heels got to send you off the right way, buddy. Appreciate you listening. Talk to you soon.